The story that made the Cybermen scary again. The Cybermen were originally brought back in the Age of Steel 2-parter with an absolute bang. These made the Cybermen interesting and scary again, however this really didn't last too much longer. The string of episodes that specifically focus on the Cybermen after this episode are boring, dull, and outright absurd. Closing Time, Nightmare and Silver, and Death in Heaven arguably ruin the characterization of the Cybermen. Closing Time with James Corden is a sequel to the other James Corden episode, and the focus predominantly focuses on him. The way this episode concludes is James Corden being upgraded, but he actually beats a Cyberman through the power of love. I just feel like this degrades the power of upgrading for me. Nightmare and Silver makes them run fast, it makes them take their heads off and their hands off, and they just look like robots. It's a bad interpretation of the Cybermen. And the Death in Heaven 2-part is a great Missy Master episode, but not a great Cybermen episode. It predominantly focuses on the Master, and the Cybermen sort of take a back seat as the slaves of the Master, which is something that I don't like in the show. Or at least when it's done like that. The 2-parter we're going to be speaking about in today's episode uses that formula well and makes the Cybermen genuinely scary again. We are of course speaking about World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls. How World Enough and Time deals with the Cybermen is great. We don't know they're the Cybermen immediately. It's not until the very last moments of the episode that we find out the Cybermen are the villains of these 2-parters. And the husks of humans that we see in this episode are downright terrifying. And that's all they say across the 2 episodes, which goes back to what makes the Cybermen so scary, which is the themes of the body horror. When the Cybermen were first introduced into the 10th planet, they had the same sort of feeling. They felt real, they felt like they were genuine humans that had been converted into cyborgs. A audio drama that also does this very well is Spare Parts. It paints the Cybermen as a graphic creature, and it's really interesting. I think what also makes this such an interesting Cybermen episode is Stephen Moffat isn't afraid to hurt the companion. Bill Potts, spoiler alert, ultimately ends up getting converted into a Cyberman, and that's how we reveal the Cyberman in this episode, Bill Potts being one, which I think is one of the most effective reveals that we've had in the show. At the same time of finding out that Bill is a Cyberman, we also find out that John Simm's master is in the episode, not directly related to the Cybermen, but how he deals with the Cybermen, John Sim, is great. I think what makes it such an effective Master Cyberman combo is the Master doesn't want to take over anywhere. He doesn't want to rule with these Cybermen. He's doing this to toy with the Doctor. He's doing this to toy with people rather than try and take over planets, which complements the Cybermen so effectively because they've got their own free will and they're genuinely scary in these episodes. My only gripe with all of this is I feel like they move away from the idea of body horror way too quickly. By the Doctor Falls, the Cybermen are already flying, something that I personally dislike. Don't get me wrong, it looks cool, but again, I feel like it takes away from the Cybermen just being upgraded human beings. I also do love the fact that, like I previously stated, the Master and the Cybermen do share a lot of screen time, but they're not minions of the Master. They originally start off as the Master's ploy and their toys, but then they start attacking the Master, and I think that's great. They also attack the Doctor, which just adds to another level of scariness. The Doctor is the audience's security blanket, and nothing really normally hurts him, so this is really big for the show. And did I mention how Peter Capaldi's performance as the 12th Doctor here is not only his best, but also elevates the Cybermen and the threat of the whole situation.
It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right! Because it's decent! And above all, it's kind.
The 12th Doctor being so emotional here adds so much layer and depth to the Cybermen. It isn't the Time War, it isn't this big scenario. He's just on a ship, it's life or death, and it's simplistic. And I think all of the factors that I've previously mentioned, the body horror, Peter Capaldi's good performance, the Master, how they deal with the Cybermen here just in general, and Bill Potts being upgraded, makes this episode so scary for the Cybermen. They feel like they're real and they feel like a genuine threat. In other episodes, they feel like a gimmick. They don't feel real. When they're flying and when they're running around, they don't feel real. They don't feel like actual things that could genuinely happen. And that's something that's always made the Cybermen scary. That's something that could genuinely happen in the future. And it plays on our ideas of technology and advancements and upgrading things constantly. And this episode captures that to a T, like the original 10th Planet does. And ultimately, that's what makes the Cybermen so scary here. They play on our fears, they play on our wildest dreams and ideas and our nightmares and all of the things that are currently happening in the current world. And watching these episodes in 2024, they're incredible. The advancement in technology and AI currently that plague the news adds an extra layer of detail to this episode and depth. It makes it genuinely interesting and something that's thought-provoking but also pretty damn scary. I couldn't make this video without mentioning the final battle between the Doctor and Cybermen and the Doctor falls. The Doctor brings up several other battles that he's faced between the Cybermen. It adds this real connection, like they've got a history. It makes it feel like a genuine performance, and that's what Peter Capaldi's good at. It's making Doctor Who feel genuinely real, genuinely feeling like something that's going on currently. I genuinely wholeheartedly believe here, if you switched out Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor here with any other Doctor, I don't believe this episode would be as strong as it is. The 12th Doctor's emotion here, and the Cybermen's body horror and their whole emotion, contrast each other so beautifully and make such a wonderful episode. I can't help feel that maybe David Tennant's charisma here as a 10th Doctor might not work as well as Peter's portrayal of the 12th Doctor. These episodes are written to Peter's and even the Cybermen's strength. They're written to a T. There isn't like a Doctor Who episode where you could probably switch out the Doctor and it would play out the same. Without the 12th Doctor here, without Peter Capaldi here as the 12th Doctor, these episodes wouldn't be as good, and a lot of the key emotional notes wouldn't hit the same. And because of those key emotional notes, the Cybermen have a depth that personally I don't think we've seen since or before this episode for the New Who revival. Since those episodes aired, the only episode that ever came close with the Cybermen was The Haunting of Billy Diodati with Asher the Cyberman. The body horror's there, the emotion's there, and it's great. He was a great idea. But he got ruined by later plot points, like the Timeless Child and other pointless episodes that he got brought back into. It decreases the value of that episode. The Haunting of Billy Diodati as a separate episode is great, but combined with all the others, it ruins it. Where with these two episodes, they're two great standalone episodes. World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls highlights what makes the Cybermen so good, and I wish episodes would take note on that. I wish episodes featuring the Cybermen would take note on what makes them so good in those episodes. But sadly, so far, we haven't seen a lot of that, and a lot of people don't want to see the Cybermen back because of how overused they've got, but also how many bad stories they've been brought back into. Cybermen are genuinely scary villains. They are villains that make people think about current day advancements in technology, and they're great. They're genuinely interesting, and they're some of the most iconic cyborgs in pop culture history. World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls highlights why they're so popular and why they're so well known. There's plenty of classic stories that do the same thing. Plenty of classic stories that play on the Cybermen's strengths. However, in regards to New Who, I feel like there are very far and few in-between stories that actually detail why the Cybermen are so scary and why they're so good as villains. And why, in my opinion, they make the Doctor's best foe. Well, besides Davros. But genuinely, everybody who's watching today's video, what's your thoughts on Wild Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls? Do you enjoy these episodes? Do you think they're the Cybermen's scariest debut since the classic series? What's your thoughts on it? Comment down below your opinions. But I've been your host, Samuel Who, and I will catch you in the next episode of Samuel.